What if a city's skies turned from safe to a battlefield overnight? Imagine millions of people suddenly trapped under a relentless storm of drones and missiles, their daily lives shattered by alarms and sudden cancellations. This is the new reality gripping Russia's heart, the once untouchable capitals now echoing with the sounds of warning sirens and disrupted flights. Since March 2025, Moscow and St. Petersburg have been thrust into a cycle of chaos. It began with a staggering wave of unmanned aerial vehicles striking Moscow on the night of March 11. Unlike anything before, the attack came from multiple directions at once, overwhelming layered air defenses with a mix of low-flying, stealthy drones. Residents around the city felt the tension ripple through the night as airports went dark and flights were grounded. The phrase night closure became a chilling new normal. This wasn't a one-time event. Instead, it marked the start of what could only be called an alarm economy. Evening rush hours turned into moments of uncertainty, as sudden announcements echoed through city streets and transit systems. The disruption spread beyond air travel, logistics and daily commutes were caught in the crossfire of this new warfare rhythm. By May, the pressure intensified again. On the 6th, multiple airports around Moscow halted operations temporarily. Takeoffs and landings froze as risk assessments scrutinized every inch of the runway and flight corridors. Passengers found themselves trapped in holding patterns, their plans unraveling in real time. The anxiety wasn't just in the skies, it seeped into the nerves of every traveler. This unfolding crisis painted a stark picture. War had crept from distant borders straight into the lives of millions. What started as sporadic attacks had evolved into a persistent storm, reshaping the very fabric of daily existence around Russia's most vital cities. But what would come next? Would the defenses hold, or was this just the beginning of something far bigger? In May, the pressure on Russia's skies intensified again, shaking the very foundations of civilian air travel. On May 6, multiple airports near the capital ground their operations, freezing takeoffs and landings after safety assessments flagged risks both on runways and in crucial flight corridors. Airport and city systems began echoing a chilling phrase, waiting for airspace security, a new normal for anxious travelers. By May 25, this stop-and-go ordeal repeated, with planes forced into holding patterns and departure queues, turning routine journeys into nerve-wracking marathons. Imagine thousands stranded, plans shattered just before the busy summer season, the ringing of flight alerts sparking as much anxiety as emergency sirens piercing the city's night. June brought no relief. Instead, pressure mounted, attacks grew bolder and more frequent. The first week of the month echoed with drone swarms disrupting flights over Moscow and St. Petersburg, halting the schedules that millions depended on. Then, on June 25, military officials announced the downing of 114 unmanned aerial vehicles in a single day, a staggering figure revealing a surge of coordinated strikes targeting multiple regions simultaneously. This wasn't just an air war, electronic warfare rippled outward, crippling navigation tools and driver apps across the capital's outskirts, turning everyday commutes into hazardous puzzles. Moments came when people's phones wavered, location signals jumping erratically over vast areas. The city felt like it was holding its breath as the familiar warnings repeated, flights suspended as a precaution. Followed by the defiant assurance, we destroyed them. What does it mean for millions living in these bustling cities? The relentless, shadowy threat hovering overhead disrupts not just the skies, but the very rhythm of daily life. Flight delays, cancellations, digital glitches, they are the new soundtrack of survival in an unsteady world. Can the battered air defenses keep pace with the rising tide of attacks? Or are these just the opening moves of a more dangerous game unfolding in the skies above? And if the skies are growing dark and restless, what lies ahead when the stakes rise even higher? Stay tuned, because the next chapter reveals an escalation that will push Moscow's resilience to the breaking point. Previously, we saw how brief location disruptions on mobile phones became a frequent, unsettling sign. Every time the phrase "flights suspended as a precaution" was paired with "we destroyed them," it intensified anxiety. Travelers faced unexpected delays, cargo shipments stalled, and routines fractured again and again. Despite active defense efforts, the challenge only deepened. Throughout July 2025, the scale and scope of threats expanded further. Suddenly, the conflict wasn't just airborne, it moved into Moscow Oblast, targeting key infrastructure. On July 4, a transformer station near Sergei Posad was hit, exposing a critical vulnerability. Defenses had to broaden from focusing solely on drones to securing essential energy nodes and other above-ground facilities, transforming the battlefield into something far more complex. The very next day, 4 more unmanned aerial vehicles were shot down over Moscow. These back-to-back strikes were a wake-up call for city operators. The discussion shifted from mere reaction to preparation. Backup plans became no longer optional but vital. Generators were stocked, fuel reserves bolstered, critical IT rooms relocated, and emergency lighting systems installed everywhere. For residents, power interruptions became regular, small rebellions against normalcy, sparking waves of anxiety. Nights were restless, not because of darkness alone, but the chilling question, when will the next blackout hit? During the first week of July, this tension escalated. By mid-month, the numbers revealed a grim reality: the conflict's pressure had risen to unprecedented levels. On July 18, airspace closures struck at Domodedovo and Vnukovo airports due to drone strikes. Just 2 days later, officials announced that out of 142 UAVs launched nationwide, 117 had been intercepted, with 27 neutralized over Moscow's skies alone. These dates marked a turning point. The stop-and-go rhythm at airports became routine. Flight interruptions aimed at shielding the capital's air corridors were no longer exceptional, they were summer's new norm. Airlines adapted by permanently installing backup plans. Alternative airports became standard. For travelers and businesses alike, uncertainty was the only certainty. What happens when a city's defenses stretch thin but the pressure refuses to relent? Moscow now stands at the edge of a fragile new reality, where every flight delay echoes a deeper struggle fought in shadows. Could the battles in the skies soon drown out the pulse of daily life entirely? The answer lies just. Moscow, once a symbol of strength, now found itself at the mercy of an unpredictable and menacing reality. As unexpected drone attacks buzzed through the skies, the old routine of daily life dissolved. The war, formerly distant, was now a terrifying specter haunting the very foundations of the capital. With each passing day, the once bustling airports of Moscow began to echo with uncertainty. Frequent cancellations became an unwanted norm, bringing with them a wave of anxiety. Imagine an ordinary family eagerly waiting for their flight, the excitement in the air palpable. Suddenly, the announcement comes: flights have been suspended due to airspace security measures. The silence that follows is deafening, as hearts sink and plans unravel before their eyes. Local news reports detail the chaos unfolding: multiple domestic airports paralyzed, flights redirected, and honking horns replaced by eerie calmness. A seemingly simple journey transformed into an exercise in patience and anxiety. At the end of July, city dwellers began to tally the days without interruption, a grim game of counting losses rather than victories. Social media buzzed with collective memories of disrupted plans and shared frustrations. Just as normalcy seemed a possibility, another wave of chaos struck. August arrived with an unprecedented surge of alerts that rattled 3 major airports simultaneously. As August 26 dawned, emergency announcements flooded the air, gulps of disbelief filled the waiting areas. Amidst this turmoil, the air crackled with energy from unexplained explosions in distant regions like Bryansk and Smolensk. News of sabotage and scattered attack vectors drew anxious breaths from even the most stoic citizens. It became clear, the defense systems were stretched thin, scrambling to protect not just the airspace over Moscow but critical infrastructures across the country. The notion of safety crumbled like a house of cards. By late August, the alarming statement that 3 squares around the capital could close overnight was all too real, marking a new phase of life in Moscow. The quiet dread hung like a fog, draping over transport networks and emergency services, raising the question, how much longer could this go on? As September approached, the situation intensified. On the first day of the month, an astonishing figure of 160 incidents swirled through the air, with 152 unmanned aerial vehicles reported in the days that followed. No-fly zones were instituted around Domodedovo and Vnukovo as the city's pulse quickened with each siren and alert. Moscow, a city known for its resilience, was now a stark reminder of the war, no longer a distant conflict but an omnipresent threat looming over its citizens. What had shifted? What was causing this sudden surge of chaos? Could it be a newfound audacity in Ukraine's military capabilities? Or perhaps the political climate had finally shifted, too? As pieces moved on the grand chessboard of war, the Russians felt every tremor, an orchestra of fate where innocent lives played the strings of disruption. There was no doubt, the world was changing, and the stakes had never been higher. As airspace measures tightened and the everyday became anything but ordinary, the residents of Moscow learned to adapt, their lives intertwined with the pulse of the war. Previously, the endless drone waves forced the skies over Moscow to close time and again. No-fly zones around Domodedovo, Vnukovo, and sometimes Sheremetyevo became grim new realities. Sudden alerts on phones shattered the daily rhythm, reminding everyone that the front was no longer distant, it was right at their doorstep. Yet, official voices kept repeating the familiar line, drones were destroyed. But the grounded flights and shuttered runways told a far harsher truth. The war was no longer a faraway headline, it was invading the lives of ordinary Russians. Why now? What shifted the fragile balance? Part of the answer lies buried in the unshackling of political restrictions. A new chapter has opened, marked by Ukraine's growing power to strike deep into enemy lines. Capitals like Berlin have spoken plainly, range limits no longer apply. Such statements rocked Moscow, sparking sharp responses from Russian authorities. A rulebook is breaking down, and Ukraine's right to target military sites within Russia is being reluctantly accepted by more players. At the same time, whispers from Washington speak of selective curbs on certain weapons systems. This patchwork of permissions reveals a complex dance, different weapons from different origins moving under mismatched rules. It reflects the loosening political ties between key players. This uncertainty chips away at Moscow's belief that its capital is untouchable. Data from the past 6 months tells a story beyond words. Flight suspensions grow more frequent. The windows when strikes are possible become tighter. On Ukraine's side, 3 striking forces dominate the long-range battlefield. First is the Flamingo FP5. This land-launched cruise missile family, crafted by Ukrainian firm Firepoint, claims an astonishing reach of 3,000 kilometers. Just days ago, it was deployed against military bases deep in Crimea. Imagine, a missile traveling across thousands of kilometers, carrying over a ton of warhead, capable of hitting targets long thought safe behind layers of defense. Though official details are scarce, open sources reveal that mass production is underway, backed by precision technology. This is no mere threat, it is a tangible shift that sends a shiver through Russian defenses. What does this mean for the war? How will Moscow respond knowing its arsenals no longer guarantee security? The flames may have been sparked elsewhere, but now they're burning fear into the heart of the capital itself. In recent months, millions of Russians have begun to experience the looming shadows of war. A series of drone and missile strikes, once felt only in distant lands, now echo through the heart of their cities. The air is thick with tension, as even the most secure areas, like Moscow and St. Petersburg, brace for attack. This creeping dread escalated in March 2025, when unprecedented drone assaults transformed the night skies into scenes of chaos and fear. As darkness descended on March 11, the capital faced one of its largest UAV strikes, electrifying the air with uncertainty. The relentless assault came from multiple angles at once, overwhelming the defenses and plunging citizens into a night of terror that shattered their sense of safety. The sirens wailed, and panic gripped the city as the reality struck. This was no fleeting nightmare, but rather a grim wake-up call to an uncertain future. In the months that followed, the word cancellation became a haunting echo in airports across the country. Each drone incursion led to sporadic flight halts and made life decisions for thousands feel precarious. The phrase "waiting for airspace security" became as familiar as the sounds of morning traffic, evoking unease in the hearts of travelers. Lives were disrupted as thousands sought to escape the chaos that had become their reality. The conditions worsened in June as a flurry of drone activity put the aviation sector on high alert once again. The announcement that air defense had neutralized a staggering 114 unmanned vehicles became a chilling reminder of how persistent the threat had grown. As flights halted, anxiety surged. The usual rhythms of daily life turned into frantic rescheduling and altered plans, rendered futile by invisible enemies. Then came July, a month that would redefine the stakes. A transformer station outside Moscow was targeted, showcasing a new dimension of vulnerability beyond aerial threats. The looming question on everyone's minds was clear: how secure was their day-to-day life? As night fell, once simple routines transformed into uneasy vigilance. Panic mixed with resilience as communities braced against the rising tide of uncertainty. By mid-July, the relentless drumbeat of disruptions became normal. Announcements regarding the downing of UAVs filled the airwaves like foreboding thunder. The same pattern repeated: flights grounded, schedules shattered, and a pervading sense of resignation took over. Air travel was fraught with unpredictability, as everyone wondered how many uninterrupted days remained in their summer. As August approached, the frequency of interruptions reached a fever pitch. The residents of the capital faced a stark reality: even the skies above were no safe haven. The intensity of announcements regarding downed drones became a jarring soundtrack of their daily lives. The war, it seemed, could strike anywhere, at any moment. So, what could be causing this surge in strikes? The answer lay in geopolitical shifts and Ukraine's growing capabilities. Intelligence from various sources revealed that no longer was the prospect of long-range attacks a distant threat, it was now a tangible reality. Fresh strategies were being developed, and the stage was set for a tumultuous confrontation. With new precision-guided munitions entering the fray, the implications were clear. The fear of the unknown gave way to cold, calculated planning as the landscape of warfare evolved. As conflicts reached new dimensions, the question hung heavy in the air: how could this sustained alarm and distress reshape the lives of ordinary citizens? Each twist brought heavier implications that demanded attention while sending ripples through a society already on edge. Now armed with advanced technology, battles are waged both in the skies and in the minds of people navigating through wholly changed realities. The struggle has become more than just a fight for territory. It's a complex interplay of emotion, resilience, and survival. The embers of conflict burn hot, and as the balance of power shifts, everyone is left to wonder, what comes next in this evolving narrative? Moscow is shrouded in an increasingly heavy atmosphere, forcing residents to confront a new reality. Over 6 months, long-range threats have transformed from mere concepts of distance into crucial elements of military strategy. The approach to conflict has evolved dramatically, relying on low-altitude assaults and a multi-directional strategy. As citizens read alerts on their devices and listen to city announcements, the absence of sirens doesn't lessen the tension in the air. The closed runway cycle, amplified by nighttime operations, disrupts daily life. Parents must adjust their morning routines, factoring in unexpected delays, all while trying to manage the chaos. The intricate layered air defense system surrounding the capital, including Pantsers and S-300s, struggles under the weight of simultaneous threats. The costly dance between affordable drones launching attacks and expensive interceptor missiles creates a troubling imbalance. In this realm of conflict, each cheap strike can force the military to use high-priced interceptors, leading to rapid depletion of defense resources. As attacks multiply, the complexities of radar coverage become evident, diminishing the window for early warnings. The seemingly impenetrable fortress of Moscow proves vulnerable, underscoring that mere fortifications aren't enough as adversaries adapt their methods. The ongoing evolution of attack strategies demands constant vigilance and replenishment challenges within military operations. Every week, Moscow's alarms reflect a new rhythm to life as the public grapples with the growing uncertainty. Political tensions further confuse matters. Differing stances across Europe complicate expected military capabilities and strategy. This unpredictability leaves the Kremlin scrambling for answers, amplifying the inherent chaos as each attack raises the specter of disruption. While air defense boasts impressive figures, the public is less concerned with numbers than with the immediate disruptions to their lives. This disconnect between military successes and civilian inconveniences breeds frustration. It seems that a series of minor alerts can weigh more heavily on the psyche than a singular catastrophic event. Each day, questions loom larger. When will the next disruption strike? How long can this go on without affecting the very fabric of life in the capital? The answers remain elusive as the war feels closer than ever, hovering just beyond the horizon. In the heart of Moscow, millions are waking up to a new, daunting reality. For the first time, the threat of war is creeping into their everyday lives, manifesting in the hum of drones overhead and the urgent announcements flooding their phones. It's as if an unseen force has cast a shadow over their sense of security, igniting a relentless cycle of anxiety and disruption. How does it feel to know that danger lurks just beyond your doorstep? Since mid-March, drone strikes and missile attacks have escalated, leaving Moscow in a state of perpetual alarm. On March 11, 2025, Moscow suffered one of its largest UAV attacks, with multiple drones converging on the city from various directions, overwhelming the air defense systems. That night, the skies lit up, not merely with stars, but with the spectral outlines of drones, each one a harbinger of chaos. As sirens echoed through the streets, the city's residents experienced a night steeped in uncertainty, a stark reminder that peace can shatter at any moment. Fast forward to the summer months. June brought another harsh awakening, with repeated announcements of flight suspensions and airspace closures echoing through the city. The familiar routine commutes, school drop-offs, and evening family outings, now hang in the balance. Each unexpected delay chips away at the psychological resilience that once fortified urban life. The atmosphere is thick with a sense of foreboding. People map their days around the uncertainty. What happens when the alarm blares while you're miles away from safety? As July rolled in, the situation worsened. Critical infrastructure became targets. On July 4, a transformer station near Sergei Posad was damaged, illustrating that the threat extends beyond the skies. Suddenly, homes were plunged into darkness not just by power outages, but by fear, a fear that grasps the heart tight, prompting everyone to wonder, when will the next blow fall? The emphasis shifted from just avoiding aerial threats to preparing for ground realities. Generators became a staple in every household. By mid-July, the nature of the threat had transformed. More drones were dispatched, and defenses struggled to keep up. On July 20, records revealed that 117 of 142 UAVs were shot down nationwide. Yet, this also meant the frequency and anxiety of interruptions surged to unprecedented levels. Passengers arriving at airports faced confusion and disorder, with the specter of uncertainty clinging to their travel plans. How many days can a city's rhythm continue to falter before overwhelming despair sets in? August escalated the chaos even further. The frequency of alerts reached a fever pitch, culminating on August 26, when a series of sudden shutdowns disrupted operations at major airports. As explosions rattled distant regions like Bryansk, residents recognized the dispersal of attacks. The indiscriminate nature of this conflict had transformed their lives into a waiting game of sirens and alarms. As September dawned, the grim reality solidified. Moscow was no longer a haven. The city became a chessboard, where every maneuver could spell doom. With drones being intercepted daily, 161 night alone, an unsettling truth emerged: the calendar now held the key to safety. Was silence once perceived as solace merely a fleeting illusion? As Ukraine's capabilities evolved, the distance that once shielded Moscow from immediate threat has essentially vanished. The sense of security has turned fragile. The rest of the world watches as this story unfolds, no longer a straightforward confrontation, but a game of strategic access that redefines what safety means. Moscow, once the embodiment of resilience and strength, now grapples with a visceral question: is any place truly safe when the clock is ticking down your every moment? To recap the previous chapter, Moscow's safety can no longer be judged by silence or calm nights. The ticking of the city's calendar itself has become the true measure of security, and Ukraine has shattered that fragile rhythm. This isn't just about drones anymore. It marks a new era. Strategic access has arrived. As restrictions on strike ranges loosen, Ukraine's advanced arsenal, the Iram system, the Palinitsia series, the Flamingo missiles, and the long-range kamikaze drone families, are rewriting Moscow's security story. The air defenses remain active, yet they face a growing absorption dilemma. Each night, the city endures more alarms, more interruptions, more chaos, a relentless alarm economy quietly throttling daily life. The battlefield map has expanded. Capitals, once shielded by distance, are now battlegrounds in every calculation. Ukraine, armed with longer reach and superior intelligence, has pushed the war from remote front lines straight into Moscow streets. This shift makes Moscow not a distant concern, but the very heart of an ongoing siege. Every beep from a warning app, every sudden closure of an air corridor, every cancelled flight or flicker of blackout lights is no longer an anomaly. These disruptions have become routine. The new normal is no longer a phrase, it's the lived experience of millions. But what does this mean for the future? When every night comes draped in uncertainty, and the very air above a city that once thought itself untouchable is pierced again and again, how long before the foundations of order begin to crack? As strategic access evolves, will Moscow find a way to reclaim its rhythm, or is this endless alarm the new fabric of life? The stakes have never been higher. And the coming chapters will reveal whether the city's defenses can adapt, or if the alarm will finally become silence in another, darker sense.